Welcome back. Joining me this morning is the Deputy Secretary of the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, Dr. Sherri Smith. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. I've got a lot of questions for you, and I'm sure you're getting a lot of questions from schools in Central PA. What has July been like? What has this summer been like as we gear up for the fall?
Yeah, so as a past superintendent and such, July was a year, the time of the year where you kind of laid back and did preparations for the next year. I would say it's a little similar to that this year for our schools as well as for us in the department, but maybe a little bit heavier because of all the guidance and direction that we're trying to get out to our schools in preparation for a new year. I think we can all say that the last year and a half has been unique for all of us, and certainly a lot more stressful. So just trying to be there as much as we can for the schools, get as much guidance and direction and support to them as we can, so that they're ready for the start of the school year to bring our students back.
The governor's talked a lot about local control, and I've talked a lot with your office about that as well. How much say will schools have in whether or not they mask, they don't mask, whether they're full-time in person, a hybrid? I mean, how much control do they have this fall?
So yeah, the Department of Health, as well as PDE, has been expressing to our schools that we, want them to follow the CDC guidance to the greatest extent possible. So when you're looking at the CDC guidance, in there it recommends that they should look at the layering of mitigation strategies. So it is a local decision. So they should look at those strategies and complete health and safety plans so that their communities and parents and students are all aware of what strategies they're putting into place for the start of the school year. But it is a local decision based off of the CDC guidance.
Is your expectation that the schools will be full-time in person this fall?
We sure are recommending it. It's we want our students back in school as much as possible, as long as they can do that so safely.
I mean, do you still think that virtual learning will still be prevalent in some form? I mean, how is that going to look? Because I mean, it is useful in some instances. I mean, we had snow days where children were still able to attend and different things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be a part of our next year with our schools. Certainly, it's not like it was unique prior to just COVID for some students to be a full virtual student. However, obviously, it's become a more used practice over this past year. So one of the things we talk about is taking the lessons we've learned over the last year and a half and embed them into our practices for this coming year. We certainly do think that there's going to be some parents and students that choose that want to be educated remotely. So we think schools will be providing some of that for our parents and our students. But also, if there's cases that they're managing in their buildings, they may need to move for a remote to case manage. So yeah, we think it'll be a part of their calendar and their schedules for this coming year.
Some people, some Pennsylvanians, and you know this, point to the number of children who have died from COVID-19, which thankfully is very low, when they're attempting to make a point about what schools should look like in the fall. What do you say to those individuals when they're using that specific metric?
Well, it's an important metric, right? So, but we also don't want our students sick. And one of the things that we know is that, the vaccines have not been available to our students yet for under 12. So we need to make sure that our school environments are as safe as possible. But again, that's one of the things that we're recommending is let's get our students back in school as much as possible. It's definitely our push for this coming year, and because we've got some learning gaps that we need to overcome in this next year.
What will happen this year if there is an outbreak? Because last year we saw where we'd have those 2-3 day long shutdowns. Do you think the expectation should be the same, that if we have, multiple cases, and how many cases would trigger a shutdown this year? What's going to be the advice?
Yeah, so again, we're going to benchmark off of the CDC guidance in regards to that. They're in process of developing some more guidance on that. Those are some of the discussions that the Department of Health and we are having right now so that we can provide at least some framework for our schools in August. It's like everything else when it has come to COVID is that we find ourselves learning as we go along, and we have to sometimes transition based on the circumstances that are at hand. But we want to make sure that our schools are ready and do have a plan in place so that if cases do increase substantially in their communities, that they're ready to be able to move to maybe a more stringent plan and know when and they can, maybe have to move to a remote environment for students for a few days to calm cases in their buildings. So we're working all of that out and hope to have some more frameworks out to our schools in the coming weeks.
Is the attestation form, that word's the worst, but is that a thing of the past?
Yes, that ended the end of June. So there is no attestation in place.
Do you think we're going to have changes to athletic guidelines? Because I know you work in conjunction with the PIAA on that, but do you think, I know we had a lot of debate about masks while children were playing basketball and different things like that. Do you think that there are going to be pretty clear guidelines about what happens on the athletic field?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we know that, contact in sports is increased even from our classrooms. So, PIAA is working strongly, I think, along with Department of Health and us in looking at the CDC guidance. There's some great information and guidance out there and how to manage cases, but definitely, again, we're all working to learn the lessons we've learned before and make sure that our students are safe so that they can continue to engage in their athletic experiences this coming year.
The CDC suggested masks for grade levels, K through 12. Is that going to be the recommendation from the Department of Education? I know you talked a lot about local control, but a suggestion maybe from the Department of Ed.
So certainly we see that cases are increasing again nationally as well as in the state. So we did see the CDC guidance pivot this past week to our recommendation in the classrooms. Again, our recommendation coming from the Department of Health as well as us is to follow the CDC guidance to the greatest extent possible. So a local decision for them to take a look at that guidance. They certainly should have read in this last week that it's a stronger recommendation coming to them from CDC, but it is a local decision.
The one question I had too was about school bus transportation. I mean, it doesn't really qualify as public transportation because I can't just get on there. You can't just get on a school bus, but they are on a bus. Are students going to have to mask up on the bus?
Yeah, that is a federal order that they are to be masked on the buses. So that is clearly delineated in the CDC guidance.
Excellent. And my last question for you, Dr. Smith, and I know I've asked a lot, you've done a great job, are you working with the Department of Health if there is a chance that children under 12 can get the vaccine? Is there a way that you can work with school districts to make that happen? Are you having those discussions?
Not quite yet, but I know they're impending. Certainly, again, we'll do whatever we can as a department to work with the Department of Health to assist our schools in keeping our students safe.
How ready are teachers and students to get back in the classroom? How ready do you think they are?
I can't, all right, so as an educator for 37 years, I can't imagine they're not excited about all coming back to the classrooms more full time this next year. And so I hope they're excited about the start of a new year and rebuilding those relationships together to have a great year of education.
Deputy Secretary Dr. Smith, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.